If someone called you up tonight and said, can you give a speech next week? Could you do it? Would you be nervous? I'm John Gross, and we have one of the best Toastmaster speakers in the country. And you know what? August 20th, he could be the best speaker in the world for Toastmasters. Kenny Ray Morgan, it's so nice to have you here.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
You've got to be so excited. I mean, this is a competition that takes place every year for years. And you're going, and how many people will you compete against? And what are the chances? What are the odds of you winning?
Well, when we start out with Toastmasters, we are, of course, all over the world. It's over 350,000 members. And we have in about 135 countries. So when I go in the competition, it starts about January, and we end up going through, if we're fortunate enough, going through August, and it's about 35,000 of us. And when it's whittled down to the semifinals, it's only about 98 of us. And after that first Thursday competition in Washington, D.C., then we'll go down to 10 of us. And that competition will be for the World Championship of Public Speaking, which will be that Saturday. They will crown the champion at that point.
Now, you got to know, Kenny Ray has been in the competition before and did not win. The key is adversity. When you didn't win, did that prepare you for this?
It absolutely did, because my motivation is to win this. And so when I didn't win in 2011, 2012, 2013, those are all the years that I went to the semifinals, I decided, you know, I want to win it, and I can win it. And my first time for preparation each of those years was on the plane back home. I began to formulate in my mind what speech I was going to use going forward.
That's amazing.
Yes.
You're a guy that loves comebacks.
Absolutely.
And what better comeback would there be? What has Toastmasters taught you? What is Toastmasters? I'm sure some people think, oh, it's about toast, or it's about toasting people. What is Toastmasters, and who is it for?
Well, Toastmasters is a nonprofit organization throughout the world that teaches leadership skills, also teaches you how to speak and be comfortable before a crowd. And essentially that's what it is. It's a lot of other things in there that it helps you with in terms of the leadership. It's two different tracks one can go on. The leadership track or the speaking track. And when you go on the leadership track, of course, you learn how to deal with people, difficult people. You learn how to be able to commandeer yourself in certain situations where you're dealing with people. And the other aspect of it is the one that I've concentrated on, is the speaking aspect, where I hone my skills to go out here and be a better communicator. And it has led me to the competitive part of Toastmasters.
Tell me where you're from. Not where you grew up, but where do you live now?
I'm in Eden Prairie, and I've been in Eden Prairie for about 15 years now.
Eden Prairie. That's what I like about doing the interview. It's a local guy. It's not somebody that flew in to do the interview. Where did you grow up, and were you always a good speaker? Were you a great student and a good speaker from day one?
Well, I tell you the truth, John. In the beginning, I was a person that had aspirations to be on the stage, and I did that from a young kid up. I was just an average student in school. I grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, and I always had a knack for wanting to be on the stage. And I said that in life, I want to do this some way or another. So when they had plays and what have you, though I wasn't one of the best students, I would always be under the spotlight doing whatever I could do. And when I got into junior high school, I made up my mind I wanted to become more than just a C student. Mm-hmm. And so I began to get into, I wouldn't say politics, but I started to get into student government. And that put me front and center on the stage, and I said, you know what, this is something I like to do. And it took me all of these years to finally get to Toastmaster to do what I really needed to do, which was to hone my skills. And that's the reason why I did come to Toastmasters, was to do that. I'm not a born orator. I study and I work at it each and every day. Each and every day. That's Monday through Sunday. I work at it every day. And it has helped me tremendously. Toastmasters has been that guide for me to keep me on track.
I love this quote: success is finding a job you do for nothing and then find a way to get paid for it.
Absolutely.
This fits right into your wheelbarrow. This is something you love to do, and I think you get better when you love to do it. And I'm a Toastmaster too, and one thing I like about it is the evaluations. Toastmaster speeches are evaluated. Now, you have to understand, we're not talking about an hour-long speech. We're talking about 5 to 7 minute speeches, 10 to 12 minutes. So what about the evaluations? How much does that help a Toastmaster?
Well, essentially, this is one of the main reasons I came to Toastmasters, was to get those evaluations so that I could hone my skills to become a better speaker. And I tell you what, a lot of people shy away from it. And when I talk about, and you mentioned adversity earlier, that's the adversities that you faced. Adversity, I believe, is what makes an individual. I always use the analogy that King David wouldn't have been the great king that he was if it was not for Goliath. He didn't like that point of having to face Goliath, but when he did and he finished and went through it, he was better off for it. So I use that same analogy with Toastmasters. You go in and you get the evaluations and the constructive critique. It may not feel good to you at first, but you will reap the rewards over and over and over to the point where you get to where you crave feedback and you crave the constructive criticism, because it really helps.
That's the key. It's constructive.
Yeah.
You know, sort of a motto is, you don't tear people down, you build them up.
Absolutely.
And you start out with something positive about it, and
yes.
I've found that has helped me more than anything.
Absolutely.
Now, your background, one thing you don't know about Kenny Ray is that he's a great singer. When did you start to sing, and do you use that in speeches?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I don't consider myself a really good singer, but I know that I can carry a tune, which is enough to encourage me to place those tunes that I find fitting for a particular speech. It's like a prop for me. And when I find an opening to do it, I'll do it. For instance, in 2011, when I went on stage in Las Vegas, I had a speech called Mama Said. And that came from, I think it was the old Shirelles way back in the 60s. They had that song, Mama Said. And so I said, you know what? Let me do a little deflection here. Let me start off with the speech, and then I'll go into the 3 things that Mama taught me. So I literally went off into the speech. The song. Mama said there'll be days like this. There'll be days like this, my mama said. And I went into it. So it's something that's unexpected, and it adds a little flavor to the speech. And I just use the songs to help to bring out the message.
You are awesome. I heard you at the District 6 speech, and he sang that song, and I just, wow, this guy can sing. And you have such a background. One thing with Toastmasters, I think my favorite part is called Table Topics. That's where you get a question you don't know's coming at you. And you have to talk about it, and you try to talk about it for 2 minutes and maximum 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Do you like the table topics?
I like table topics. At first I was very uncomfortable, as most people are when they first come to Toastmasters, very uncomfortable with speaking off the cuff or impromptu, whatever you want to call it. It is doing that, and what happens is, this is one of the main ingredients from Toastmasters that brings people out of their shells. It teaches you how to, again, be spontaneous. This is something that you haven't rehearsed. The questions may come left and right, and you have to be prepared to answer it. But I think it's what really helps individuals to get over their shyness and get over their fear of speaking. You just jump right into the water, so to speak.
Table topics, question number 1. Kenny Ray, you grew up in Louisiana. What is the hottest you have ever been in temperature-wise? And how bad was it?
Well, the hottest that I've ever been, of course, is in my home state, Louisiana, let me just qualify this now, because I've been in Arizona, and I'll just share that briefly. But Louisiana, when you get 100 degrees there, it's like you're into 120 because the humidity is unbearable. Now, they say in Arizona it's a dry heat. Now, I've been down there when it's 120 degrees where the planes couldn't even land. They had to circle. Now, I don't know that much about the atmospheric pressure and the meteorological terms that they were talking about, but I know it was too hot for the plane to land. 122 degrees. But in Louisiana, that 122 paled to comparison to 100 degrees because of that humidity. It's dry heat in Arizona, but in Louisiana it's wet and it is hot. So that's what I experienced as the hottest.
Let me ask you a question, Kenny. Can you imagine the New Orleans Saints playing outside? Now, that would never happen, but playing football outside, the fans would faint, not only them, but are you a big Saints fan?
Absolutely. Well, I am a Saints fan. I've been in Minnesota all of my adult life, so I have a conflict when they get together, because I know a lot of the Vikings players, being around them a lot, and actually doing business with a few of them. So I'm conflicted there when they come together as components.
What is the key to getting better? What is the key to getting better at Toastmasters speeches? We go by a manual, and the first one has 10 different speeches to give. What is the key to getting better and progressing?
Well, I truly believe that you have to be a student. And a student, if you want to be a champion in anything, you have to be a student of the game, I believe. And it has been said that repetition is the mother of all learning. So I would get a speech after I'd formulate it, I'd go over it and over it and over it. And internally, people say you should internalize more than memorize. Well, to be honest with you, I first start to memorize so that I can be free of the ums and the ahs, you knows and the so's, all the filler words. And then after going over that speech over and over and over, it becomes part of me internally. So I internalize it so that if you woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I can start to give you the beginning or the ending. So I think that repetition in anything is the mother of all learning. You want to learn something, you come to Toastmasters and you go through your manuals, but in order to go through those manuals, you have to be able to formulate your speech and know it, and you do that by repetition. And I think that's one of the things that really gets you through Toastmasters is the personal development from repetition.
The one thing I've had a problem with is repetition. And that I give it over and over, and it sounds like I memorized it. How do you keep, especially in a competition you got to have. Now, what's interesting about the World Championship, if Kenny advances to the World Championship, he has to give a new speech, a brand new speech. How do you do that? How do you literally practice so it doesn't become like you've had it memorized and you can really be hurt? And I've been hurt that way.
Absolutely. You have a great question there. First of all, you want to give a speech that is familiar to you. This is why they always say it has to be authentic. I think from life's experiences, you give your speeches. That way they are very personal to you and you can deliver them very personally without being with rote memorization. In other words, you internalize it, it's part of you, and you deliver it as such. And you come off more authentic than you would as somebody that's, say, reading something in their mind like they're reading from a script. So you always should start with something that is very personal to you, that has very significant meaning. Like the speech that I have right now that I'm going in with, it is very, very personal to me because it tells part of my mother's story. And so when I start to talk about that, it's very emotional for me. And it doesn't require me memorizing, but just to actually actualize or relive what happened. And you put that picture in your mind, and it just comes out naturally.